Time for us to do something that we've been trying to do for a little while. Stephen Kisbey-Green is with us this morning. Good morning to you, Stephen. How are you?
Morning, Joe. How's it going?
Yeah, pretty good. So we were doing recently a look back at the last time that the Lions were in South Africa with Brian O'Driscoll on, talking about the 2009 Test Series, one of the biggest abominations in the history of world sport, Stephen. And there you were tweeting about how this was the greatest event you've ever been at personally, and how Morningstain's kick was the best thing that's ever happened to you in your life. So look, you know, I just figured that we should tease this out a little bit. I mean, how could you possibly be proud of the violence that your nation inflicted upon the Lions that day?
Well, hang on. Let's think back 2 seconds here. It wasn't just the South Africans that had a bit of violence. If you will remember, I think O'Driscoll mentioned it himself a while during that chat. That hit on Donnie Rousseau was a bit illegal as well. So that series in particular was a very, very physical series, and to be honest, it was the highlight of what South African rugby was at the time and is currently now. And that is just pure and utter brute force, but not... obviously, Schalkburger's eye gouge, definitely illegal. But for the most part, most of those hits for the day were genuine, actual hits that were perfectly fine. And the Lions just couldn't handle the heat.
Well, if Berger had been sent off in that first minute, which he should have been, which the whole world thinks he should have been, including, I would say, Berger at this stage, having a nice little route around Luke Fitzgerald's cornea there, just to make sure that it was still all, oh, sorry, it's breached now. You know, once that, look, it's one of those great sliding doors moments in world sport. If he gets sent off, I've no doubt that the Lions win that test, because the performance that they put in that first half was absolutely sensational. And then that third test could have been one of the great sports experiences of all time. That's Rassie giving you a call there just to make sure that you're toeing the party line here.
This has been going on for morning. Yeah, no, like the Lions probably would have won that match if Berger was sent off. But the difference that kind of proved the fact that that sort of helped South Africa win was just that physicality in general, and the fact that at the end of the day the Lions couldn't field the fully fit 15. I mean, when you have Ronan O'Gara coming on in the centres and then getting absolutely brutalized as well as the moment he came on, it's difficult to maintain that dominance that you've had through the 60 minutes. The Lions dominated that first half scrums in particular, which was something huge for South African rugby at the time. When you got beast going backwards, that never happens. So not being able to field a strong enough scrum in that second half was monumental for the Lions and Springboks. So you can argue, yes, the Lions probably would have won if Berger went off in that first half with a red card. But odds are the injury still could have occurred, and
it's true.
The Springboks would have then taken over the physical stakes that weren't in the scrum. But look at it, the line-out was still dominating with Victor Matfield. You can't beat Victor Matfield in the air. Nobody ever did. And in Brian Abana on the wing, scoring that try, getting the box back into it. And who can argue whether or not the Lions would have won? But what you can argue is that if Morningstain had started, I don't think the match would have been that close at the end anyways.
Because Ruan Pienaar had missed a lot of kicks in it, which probably gets airbrushed a little bit from the history as we re-watch it. You're in the stadium that day, is that right?
Actually, unfortunately, not the Loftus test. The third test, the one in Ellis Park. I remember, but I do remember vividly that moment watching from home in Boksburg.
What does the Lions tour mean to the rugby fan in South Africa? Why does it energise them so much? Why is it so important?
It's kind of weird. I equate it to like winning a World Cup, in that you build up for so long for it, and then by the end of the day, it's over in the blink of an eye, and you've either won or you've lost, and that determines how you are looked at by those particular people for the next 12 years. I mean, you just have to look at all the talk leading into the 2009 tour after 1997, where everyone was basically rubbing dirt in the wound, and this is 12 years of pain for the Springboks and all that sort of thing. It does eat at you if you have lost that series. And in particular, for a South African rugby player, like Andre Pollard mentioned it during the week as well, the Lions come around for a South African once every 12 years. And the opportunity to play against the Lions is a once in a lifetime opportunity for most people in the Southern Hemisphere. So to be called into that squad, to be given the opportunity to play them not only once but potentially twice for Morné Steyn and for Francois Steyn, it is something special. And for the fans, it's basically an invading force. Okay, this year is a little bit different because you're not bringing the Red Army with you. It's just the playing squad. But in a usual tour, the amount of fans that come through to support the Lions is literally an invading force. So the entire country sort of galvanizes and supports their team and sort of tries to back out this invading force that has basically usually runs rampant across the provinces, as it has done this year. And it's a unifying factor more so than any other incoming tour. Like, say, for example, if Ireland were to come to South Africa, it's slightly different because Ireland don't bring that huge number of fans, and
you generally beat us anyway. You don't really care, right? It's not a rivalry. You don't need to patronise us here, Stephen. We're grand.
Well, fair. But I mean, it is that special thing that happens. It's so rare that it comes to South Africa. It's like once every 12 years. The next time it'll come to South Africa, who knows what South Africa might, with what's going on in the country at the moment, South Africa might be under a completely different set of circumstances.
Can I just bring up one time that you didn't just beat us, which was, funnily enough, brought up by Rassie this week, where he took a clip of Brent Pope talking about how South Africa were a rabble. We were 14-0 up at half-time in one of the November internationals. I can't even remember what year it was. Is it 2017? Is that right? Maybe it's not. But what is Rassie doing? Trolling Irish media to find any little bit of somebody saying something negative about South Africa and then tweeting it. Why is he engaging in these tactics? What the hell is going on?
He's responding to Warren Gatland, calling out Rassie for every little thing that he does.
But the clip of Brent Pope was so unprovoked. It was so weird. And like I was looking back at it, I think I didn't check the score, but somebody in the Twitter feed underneath it says we beat you 38-3. I actually don't really remember that, to be honest. But that's how much of a rabble that team must have been. And maybe the rest of their players weren't playing. Maybe it was in that period before they had decided, well, maybe we should just pick our best players. That might be the best thing for South African rugby, if we pick our best players to play for the team.
I personally don't remember the scoreline there, but I do remember it was a fairly handy beating. That was also the year that we lost to Argentina for the first time. Sorry, at home for the first time. And yeah, that was when Rassie had just taken over the position, starting to build in. That was a particularly bad time for South African rugby. But
so he's using this as a motivational tool to remind everybody about how far they've come. Is that it?
Exactly. The players that Rassie brought in after that, and even I think during that test match, most of this team that's playing on Saturday was there as well. They know what it feels like to be humiliated by what we would call a lesser team. And let's be honest, South Africa do see the Northern Hemisphere as a lesser team, and that's because in history has proven that against South African opposition, they do tend to lose.
Yeah, and it's true. Yeah, it's just a bold statement of facts. That's what you're giving us here.
I mean, statistics are not in the Lions' favour. Another thing that dragging up the past, everyone's considering South Africa undercooked this year. They're no more undercooked now than they were in 2009. If you think about it, 2009 they had one test match against Namibia. This year they had one test match against Georgia, and they still came out and physically beat up the Lions. I don't see it going any other way this weekend.
Do you think they're going to absolutely annihilate them physically? Because there is this sense that South African rugby is fairly one-dimensional, that it is absolutely about the fact that for whatever reason there are bigger human beings born in South Africa who are good at playing rugby, and so therefore they lean on this and crush the opposition. And then, you know, maybe there are some flair players, one or two sprinkled across the team traditionally, who run up the score. But ultimately, the decision is based on who wins the fight, and your forwards tend to win the fights.
Well, yeah, but you mentioned they're physically bigger, and I don't actually agree that South Africans are physically bigger. It's not size that makes them more physical than everyone else. I mean, I wrote an article for Off the Ball a couple of weeks ago, basically just analyzing the different pack weights and heights and physical sizes of different players. And New Zealand, France, Australia, even England, they all have bigger, physically massive, more massive players than South Africa. In the 2019 World Cup, when South Africa dominated the English scrum and pushed them back 5 weeks to Sunday, the English scrum was heavier by at least 50 kilograms. But the difference is that the South Africans are born, or are bred, not even born, but they're bred to never accept that you're tackled. So for somebody like Dwayne Vermeulen, for example, he gives up 14 kilograms on a Believe in a Polo. He's 14 kilograms lighter than Believe in a Polo, but he will be more dominant in the hit because he refuses to accept that he has been tackled. He wants to drive through. And that's what all South Africans do. It's bred in, I mean, Andre Pollard mentioned it as well, as to why he thinks that South African rugby is a beautiful game. It's that from 1 to 15, you do not accept that you're tackled. You always want to either hit the shoulder or take the gap and just power through, leg drive, and physically try and break through the defense. And so, and because we've been bred up with that from an early age, it just carries on, and then we add more muscle to that, and then you get somebody the likes of Ibn Etzebeth, who has got a little bit of Bucky's Botha in him, and causes a little bit of fight as well.
Yeah, I'm. The rest of the world doesn't really have any characters like Bismarck du Plessis, for example. He seems to be one of a kind, and yet almost every Springbok team that wins the World Cup seems to have a busy in there somewhere.
Yeah, it's we do enjoy the term enforcer. Even in high school, there's always that enforcer that tries to rile up the opposition. It's more it's a little bit like what the All Blacks do with their scrum offs. But the difference is when the scrum offs try and make you want to hit them, they run away. When Etzebeth or Bismarck or Bucky's make you want to hit them, you don't want to hit them.
That's true. So tell me about the high school tradition of the enforcer. So every team would have one, and their job would be to rile up the opposition.
Yeah, it's basically you doing everything you can within the laws of the game to just irritate the opposition. Sort of like what Mario Itoje does. You just go a little bit offside, but just onside so that you're fine. You put in a slightly harder hit than you need to if the ball's already gone, but you've already committed. It's if somebody scores something, or somebody is celebrating a big scrum victory, you get up in their face and you push them back, and you sort of make your physical presence known, and then it's an idea that they will second guess running into you again. And then if one person won't want to be run into, then they'll try not to run into everyone else.
Do you think that this part of the world is a bit mad, making the Lions slight favourites for this game this weekend?
Yes, I do. I don't think that I don't think the Springboks are nearly as undercooked as advertised. Granted, the couple of players have literally had zero training. They've come out of quarantine on Sunday, so they spent the past 2 weeks literally playing Xbox in their hotel room. But if that rumored leaked 15 that was announced, or that was leaked last night, is anything to go by, I don't see that Lions pack being a huge problem for the Springboks. Even with a Kwaka Smith, who's not your typical South African eighth man, I genuinely think that I don't think it'll be a huge margin, but I do think South Africa will win this first test. Where it goes from there, though, I've got no idea.
All right, Stephen Kisbey-Green, thanks very much for joining us this morning. Cheers.
Cheers, Joe.